topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Are you ready to take a journey? Let's connect with the healers of the world. It's that time. It's time for the Language of Healing on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Now here's your host, Emotional Wisdom Training Specialist Nicole Fortin.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Language of Healing. We are live today. It's Friday, November 12th, and for many of us, we've had Remembrance Day on November 11th to remember and honor those that have fought for us and for our freedoms. And I like Remembrance Day because it gives us a moment to remember and to be in a state of appreciation for those that have come before us. So that can be all of the soldiers that have fought in wars previously, and also just thanking our ancestors and our long lineage of people that have kept us going and our families going. And would we be here without them? No, not really. So I really enjoy remembering and being grateful for that and appreciative of that. And this time of year, we've got the Remembrance Day, Thanksgiving, and then we go into the Christmas holiday season, or however you're celebrating in December with family and friends. And it's a big time for reflecting, right? And the remembrance and the reflection can bring up a lot of emotions and feelings, thoughts, and beliefs. And generally around this time of year, we see that the spin cycles coming and going or repeating. And this is what today's conversation is we're going to talk about, is how to have a calm confidence in crazy times. Crazy times call for calm confidence. And how to achieve that. My guest today is Lynn Hilderman, and she is also, like I, an emotional wisdom training specialist. And one of the key things for emotional wisdom training is focusing on training ourselves how to respond more wisely versus reacting emotionally when our feelings, thoughts, and beliefs come up. And how can we create what limits us into something that motivates us? And that's often, gathering more information around what that trigger might be or what's going on behind that. And so you gather more information, you get more perspective, maybe see it a little bit differently, or maybe in that gathering of information or remembering of all of the pieces completes a bigger, more holistic approach and view that can help you move forward. So remembering that we have a body, we have a mind, and we have a heart. And all three of those are separate brains. They're separate, but not separate, together and separate. But so it's like remembering that it's all integrated together. And this is how we can move forward with more alignment and getting more of what we want. Even if times aren't easy, we do have the ability to, breathe, pause, and get grounded and present, connect with what's important to us, what we value, and what we want moving forward. And so our guest today is Lynne Hilderman, as I've said before, and she is a co-owner of Britannia Bodywork Wellness Centre in Calgary, Alberta. She works with clients all around the world with her emotional wisdom training and core alignment work. She's also a massage therapist, craniosacral specialist. She's been trained in access consciousness and healing touch, Reiki, communication mastery, so many things, art of feminine presence. And so let's welcome her today. We'll have Lynn on the show.
Hello.
Hello, Lynn.
Nice to be
here. Yeah, thanks for joining us. So your message is one that is, there's always so much more going on than we think and feel. And I think that plays into the part of gathering the information that really makes a difference for us, because we might be kind of tunnel visioned on something and stuck there, right? And how do we see what else is possible here? And so what does the Crazy Times call for confidence to you? What does calm confidence mean to you?
Well, I mean, calm confidence, it's been something I maybe have been striving for my life. Maybe like many others, not feeling that confident at times. But particularly right now, I've found, I just find myself really digging deeply to resource the things that are really real and true for me, to stay true to what's on the inside. And so I dove in and did something I have never done before, and kind of got kicked out of the nest to teach a class on, and I called it the Crazy Times Call for Confidence, a focus on happiness. And so part of it is, doing something I haven't done before. But at the time, there was a lot of crazy things going on in the world, and I'm just going, what is going on here? And so I guess it goes with my message of there's always so much more going on than what I think or feel or know. And, gathering that information is a really big part of it. And not even knowing where to gather that information. So I think as a core alignment specialist and emotional wisdom trainer, it gives us a chance to, have partner assisted exploration in gathering information for ourselves so that we can be more resourceful with our choices and our decisions. And so that's what triggered that whole Crazy Times call for calm confidence. And so to build that muscle, it's like weightlifting. That's how I think of it. It's a muscle that needs to be honed and built. So that's kind of where it came from.
Yeah, it is a muscle. It's a training, because we have the skills, we have the ability to, respond or react, and it's retraining that reaction, that because it happens in a millisecond, right? And yeah, I like that your focus is around happiness and what happiness is, what that means to everybody, exploring that, because it's like that topic. I don't know if I think it's one of the oldest studies around. Over 100 years, they've been looking into what makes a happy life, or what supports someone in living a long and happy life. And that class, how else are you exploring that? A deeper meaning of it, gathering more information around that, because we get so swept up or caught up in the day. And I think that's the spin cycle, right? Is just the repeat. And, that's where, well, myself, I know for sure that I get stuck in those cycles, right? And then how to shatter that or break that apart to create more room for happiness, and realizing that it's a choice.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
and this time of year, it's really common for our past. So it is a time to remember and look back. But what happens is we can get triggered into past programs or patterns that run. And then the next thing you know, I'm living in the past and not being in the present. And so when it comes to happiness or having that calm confidence, it's to take that pause, like you were saying in the beginning, of really taking a breath and tuning in and recognizing that there's so much more going on. Okay, there's all these holidays and events that have gone on for years in people's lives, and then of course we're going into a more the darker time of the year, at least up here in the northern hemisphere. It's the days are getting shorter, and it's a lot darker, and it's colder, and so there's that change of season. And so what do we do when we go in to that time? And then there's the holidays on top of it. And so, yes, it brings up family patterns, family dynamics, which can either be a happy thing or maybe not so happy thing. And, it's a time to really, I think that's where I think happiness really starts, with being calmly confident in who we are and what's important. And yeah.
Yeah. So when we're working with people, it's, like you said, the partner assisted. So because, we all have blind spots or, places that we get a little stuck. So it is really beneficial to have somebody guiding and assisting us through that process. And so we're on the radio show today. And so for our listeners, we might not get to one-on-one, but if anyone's listening live, please pop in some questions in the chat, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube live. We can see your questions and play with that a little bit. But what might our listeners start with if they realize that they've got some triggers and things coming up for them, and because there is a lot going on at this time of year, definitely. We're reflecting like, oh, shoot, it's almost middle of November. Where's the year gone? Have I done what I set out to do? Has it gone as I envisioned it? And so maybe if that's not the case, what might be some good questions or ways someone could start unraveling that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, with Remembrance Day just having passed, it is a time to kind of, especially just taking a year as an example and going back and saying, wow, where was I at in January? How did this year start out? I mean, that's just going back a year, but often going back and just appreciating and looking at, where did I come from? What has been my journey? It's easy to get caught up in the things that are always going on right now and think that there's no way out, and because it can feel like that. And so there is that, I think that's the number one thing, is to take that stance of, okay, here I am right now. And if I were to take that moment to just go, where was I at in January? Did I have any, what was I focusing on? What was getting my attention? Asking those questions, and then looking at it. Now I'm looking at it from an outside point of view. I've now gone through something, and now I'm looking back at it and reflecting on, did I have any intention? Sometimes I go into a new year, I didn't think of doing intentions. Sometimes intentions were, resolutions or whatever. I'm going to resolve to do this thing. But what were the things that were getting my attention in January? Where was my attention going? How was I feeling? What was it for me? What was it for my family, or things on the outside as well? But, what was it for me? And then I think that's the first thing, is to look back so that we can create more.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely helpful to see where we've come from, because we move forward with everything we have, right?
Exactly.
We can also, there's also that idea of letting go, but I mean, it still makes part of you, right? And influences your feelings, thoughts, and beliefs. And sometimes those aren't really the most supportive outcomes. We have an event or something that happens, an experience, and then we develop or decide really the feeling, thought, and belief around it. So
well, and we're often in it, like when we're going, we're in things when we're in it. And when we take that chance to kind of look back, we can kind of go, okay, well, I'm not in it now. Can I go back and hear what was being said? Can I go back to how I was feeling? And then can I bring that information and go, well, where am I at now? And what do I want? And what's important? What's really important? And, appreciating those things. And there was something else that you had said that kind of popped into my mind, but it kind of has left.
Yeah. Yeah, no problem. It'll come
right.
back. Yeah, I know. Yeah. So looking back and remembering the intention. I like, one of the key principles of emotional wisdom training is focusing on or paying attention, recognizing what has our attention and what is our intention. And are we putting our attention on our intention? And so remembering that intention, if you have one, or if you don't, then you just recognize, oh, I had no intention, it was just moving along. So is it what I want, and then you can have that opportunity to reconnect with, like you say, what's important to you and what your values are. So how might we connect with what's important to us?
Yeah. Well, I mean, part of it is knowing, where our attention goes, the energy flows. So anytime I do have my attention on something, that's where I'm going to be giving my energy to. So how can we know what our intention is the question. I think that's where it comes down to looking at, okay, what are the things that are really important to me? And what are they important for? And what do I get from them? So I think part of it is looking at, where am I putting my attention? What's making that important? And then if I could put my attention somewhere else, what difference would that make? And that's where oftentimes there's so much more going on than what I'm seeing. I might be just caught up in something. And so if I can recognize what my point of view is in that moment, I have way more choice to choose something different. And sometimes it's tuning into those little things that are on the inside that are just like, I really wanted to do this thing, or I have an interest in that, but I've never pursued it. I mean, those are things sort of on the outside, but sometimes it could be like, I've got this habit that I'm not happy with, and I really would like to work more on it. It could be creating a new habit, maybe getting beyond some kind of limiting pattern that I'm always doing. So I think that's where intention can be a lot of things, right? It can have to do with both the inside and the outside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so then I'm reminded of going back to our, the New Year's resolutions, and that, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to get this done, but so you might have that goal or that resolution, but without reflecting on what's important about that to you, what does it support your values and what's important to you? And then what are you doing it for? That big why, which, is like an anchor point. So you have the intention, and then you know what you're doing it for. It makes it a little bit easier. So then it's not so much pressure and stress, because when we put these restrictions or rules around something, it creates its own tension, right? But that's also not the point. It should be open and free, and moving. And, I think when you set to do something, you're going to have things come up, and obstacles show up, and those previous habits and patterns. So creating that new pattern or that new pathway habit, requires some work. I think that intention is a really strong anchoring point around that. So when things are really crazy times,
that's right.
What's anchoring you into your calm confidence?
Yeah.
And that's what you're saying is very connected to your core.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, at the time, it's like, so there's crazy times going on. How do I want to be with that? And I mean, it's easy to focus on what's not working. It's just automatic. I can go focus on, oh my God, this is not working, but then what if because if I keep feeding that, that's what's going to grow. So that's where the call is more like, well, what is working here? What are the things that, I can focus on the dismal, but I can also go, well, what really truly makes me happy here? What really brings me joy in this moment? And, so that's where the calm confidence, I think, gets built in focusing on what really truly brings me joy and happiness. What are the things from the past that I remember being happy with or happy about, or times where I felt happy? And, and I think happiness, you're speaking about happiness goes back. It's a fundamental thing in our psyches to want to be more, please, like it's fundamental. We want that. All of us, every human being wants to be a little bit more happy. Otherwise we wouldn't have the problems we do, right? People are searching for it. So, there's this sort of polarity going on with it. But the thing is, as we took this journey this past 6 weeks in September through really focusing on what happiness means to us, it really starts to bring out some other qualities than just being happy and having a good time and laughing or whatever it might look like. It really starts to build this muscle of, geez, I really know who I am, and I know what brings me joy. I know what helps my body. I can take care of myself more. And I start to see that my world is so much better when I am taking care of myself. My family is happier. If I put myself, that calm, confident, taking care of myself place first, then there's more of me to give to what is there. And it's so easy. I'm one that puts my attention on other people a lot. It's just my nature. But it's like, okay, sometimes I have to reel it back and fill this tank first, and really discover what that is for me, because then it emanates out. It's not so much I have to go searching for it.
Right. Yeah, it's coming from within. I'm thinking of Chinese medicine or Eastern medicine. We have the 5 element theory, and just basically the 5 elements say there's 5 basic emotions as well, and we have chi, or the life force, so give it like a base translation, but it's that energy that fills us and creates us, really. But the emotion of happy or joy relaxes our chi. So it's available, it's present, it's like all around us, versus fear sinks chi. So, and then, anger stagnates chi, so it's even realizing that we're more capable of being present and with ourselves and with others when we are more relaxed, and just recognizing that, training ourselves to recognize how is my energy right now? How's my energetic body? Am I sinking in fear, or fired up, right? Like just it's shooting out. So that visual, I think, really stands out to me when we're talking about happiness, because we have a lot more options when our chi is relaxed. And it doesn't have to necessarily mean that you're living or you're in the moment of something that's happy, like there could be, there is sadness, there is,
That's right.
Grief, there's fear, there's anxiety, depression, all of those things. But you can just raise your joy and your happiness just a little bit, right? A little shift. And that helps relax the body, opens up energy for focusing on more of what you want.
Yeah. And I guess that's where, I really discovered through, focusing on happiness. I focused on it for a good year, writing a program to bring more help, share that discovery of what that means for people. And, because that's what I really I came out with personally was just having that calm confidence. It wasn't about this happy, whatever, what I had thought it was. And so, especially like going into this time of the year, it's easy to associate into happy times that we've had in the past. And then we want to measure up to what has gone on before. Or we go into times that, okay, yeah, it's supposed to be a happy time, but it was never happy for me. So we start to run these programs. And so I'm thinking right now, because we're going into that time of the year, having that calm confidence in being ourselves and true to what's important as an intention going into a season that could have its nature being more, like you were saying, more closed, I guess, with whatever the elements would be, right? It has that nature because we're going into the winter. So, but it doesn't have to be a sad, heavy time, right? And so I think that's where intention, it's good to have intentions at the beginning of the year, but what intentions do I want to plant now into this soil that's, going dormant and, ready to rejuvenate, into a new year, right?
Right. Yeah, the winter time is the time of going within. We have the darker days, like shorter daylight. We have the cold, so things are freezing up, so to speak, like the ground freezes and we rest there. And it's a very deep reflective time. I think a great time to nurture yourself first, because your energy is deep. So there might not be a lot, of reserves to like the summer compared to the winter. Summer is a very outwardly expressive time versus the inward reflective nature of winter. So we are, naturally in that energy. So taking advantage of that, like getting connected or closer to what's actually nourishing you, what fuels you and your body. And, around the holidays, if there are some triggers like family dynamics or something that really do bother your chi, like kind of disorganizes it, how to shift that a little bit so you can feel more settled going into that environment or situation. I mean, from Eastern medicine, it's definitely our internal terrain meets the external terrain, and how do those two interact is huge, is everything really, in a health, and kind of determines what's coming next.
That's right. And it can create, you think those two terrains meeting create this chaos really. And so there can have that feeling of things being out of control, or what, what's going to happen, that kind of thing, right? I just by its nature can have that. And so how do we handle that? The what's going to happen, the unknown, the conflict. That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Emotional wisdom training, we have so many principles and practices, processes that can help support that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And I think, well, I mean, I guess that's where I was going. There's so much more going on than what I'm perceiving here. Number one, it's usually what, I kind of go to. And, and then there's the place of being with what's happening. Sometimes I have to just be with something for a little while before I know what kind of decision to make, and sometimes that decision is, I have to sit with that long enough that I can remember to come back to my body and listen to my body, because our body perceives things different than, who I am, and, other things that I'm noticing. Like, it's like our body has a wisdom, our mind has a wisdom, and our heart has a wisdom. But how do we bring them all together? And right now, if I'm triggered if I'm my body's all of a sudden become shut down because something is too much, then I have to rely on these other resources that I have, or try and remember how to come back to my body, because my body is what is here and now. My body, it's in the conscious realm, and it's not, my mind might be somewhere else and my heart is definitely somewhere else. So if I get too far out into those elements, I have to come back to my body. And I think that's where it has to start. It has to start in our environment. And whatever that environment is. I mean, it could be my outer environment, but ultimately it's my body, because my body is the thing that is interfacing with my environment. So I think it's that time to, go in. Probably in Chinese medicine, there's whatever soups and things that make us warm, keep us warm inside, or bone broth. Isn't that one of the things?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the first thing, is to come back to the body and the breath.
Yeah. Chinese medicine has many things to say about how to live in each season and through the transitions of season. But if you think about the winter time being the dark, cold, deepest frozen layer, and then you think about the bone broth. Well, what's our deepest substance is the bones and the bone marrow, right? Everything kind of spreads out from there. It's our structure, it's our skeleton, and it's what supports us. So if you have a good supportive structure, everything else can, flow accordingly. But I like the visual. I'm just a very visual person. So when I think about your body one place, your mind in one place, and the heart way out yonder, how do that is chaotic. That, to me, that is chaos. That doesn't feel very happy or relaxed.
Exactly.
And I think we can all recognize, even if we don't know how to bring them all together, we can all recognize those times of flow and functionality and that natural movement that we have when we are in alignment, right? Like things come easily. We're able to move through things, but the real test is how to stay there when there are crazy times.
Yes.
Around us.
That's right. Yeah. So it is.
I think it's a practice, right? It's like you said, the muscle. You have to build.
That's right.
Building the muscle. So, I think looking back and from an outside perspective is really helpful too. Just visualizing like we're two little birds sitting on a tree, and below us is this scene that's happening of our life, and maybe all those past memories that we have and our future ambitions, or how do we tie them together to be more cohesive and functional? I think that I wouldn't say that maybe there's some subconscious part of us that hangs on to those negative experiences to keep us blocked and stuck, and which it seems really counterintuitive. Like, why would someone actually intentionally sabotage our happiness, right?
Someone being ourselves, you mean? What would I do that for?
Yeah. So it's just interesting that we're not trained to look at that or move towards that. What is actually going to be beneficial for me here? It's like we get stuck in that rut and that spin cycle. And I think that's what I'd like to.
Big, and I mean, and it's easy to focus on what's not working. And one of my reasons for doing, having that conversation around this crazy times call for confidence, one of the things was I'm driving down the street, and the mental health is such an issue right now, and even me, I just said mental health is this issue. Like it is, it's a lot of things. People are struggling in that realm. And so that's on the outside. So it's so easy to focus on that, right? There's banners up, get your free assessment to find out whatever. how competent,
Right.
So then I thought, well, what if, okay, well, that's something interesting to focus on that on the outside. Well, what if it had something like, well, what if I could focus on, get your free assessment to find out how happy you are,
Mm,
that will have a whole
yeah.
different energy, right? Then,
Right.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
How mentally distraught are you versus like how happy are you?
Exactly. So it's just a different, it's the, the side of the same coin on one hand, but it's just interesting, like how, we've created things around us that are based on moving away from something that's not working, as opposed to moving towards something that could work.
Right.
So
Yeah,
I guess that's,
simple...
sort of the principles of core alignment and emotional wisdom training kind of come in there, because it is a practice. It's, it's a process and a practice, and it's we're always building that muscle.
Mm-hmm. So in the course that you've just taken your participants through, what did you notice was like really made a difference for them?
Well,
or for yourself, or
well, it wasn't what they thought it was, number one.
Yeah.
That was one of the clear things. A lot of it was having that self-awareness to notice where I'm putting my attention. And, so that was some of the awarenesses that they had, and how much the judgment that comes up around, a lot of it had to do getting beyond judgment, staying out of judgment of others, staying out of judgment of ourselves, taking care of ourselves, knowing that we have choice. And those were some of the things that came out of it. And taking that time to have an intentional conversation focused on a very simple concept, once a week for an hour. It's not a lot of time, but the intention of the call was to focus on something, consistently for a week, to gather the information around that, what it means to us, how we define it, all that kind of thing. So, a lot of the thing, like it was just, and we all showed up with whatever was going on in life, right? So it was a way to uplift ourselves. And I think it came back to the community, the container to actually focus on having that crazy times call for confidence, So there was just a lot of heartwarming, happy, like laughing, smiling, like we all came out feeling lighter. So, that's so that was, there was lots that came out of it. I'm just thinking, let's see, more relaxed in our mind and our body. We had, not judging others, finding ways to chuckle more. The strength and the ease to focus better was one of the biggest wins. And just being more aware of the delicious feelings in our body, like how really our bodies, we could actually put our attention on something else that would make us feel good.
Mm-hmm. And that is like the essence of, being human, is to enjoy all of those those fine details. I believe anyway. I think life can be enjoyable, or slightly different or more meaningful when you're tuning into those sensations, or those small wins. I don't know if that even makes sense, but it's like could have been a crap day, but we had a chuckle, and it like the chuckle relaxes the chi, it's like it creates more space and more freedom to move around in, a lighter sense of body, and not so heavy. And I like that, more focus, easier to focus.
Well, the other thing was, it was just, it kept growing. So there was this sense that it was like watering a plant, and it just it keeps growing itself that calm confidence, that sense of happiness keeps growing the more you water it. And then it was contagious. Do you know what I mean? It's not, do you know what I mean? It's like it becomes contagious. It's not just contained to just me. It, you know, so that was the other thing, you know, putting myself first and then noticing that that actually creates more of an invitation for others to do that.
Right. And that goes back to the community, sense of community. I remember from that study that happiness over 100 years following people with, you know, what makes happy long life was community was a big important piece, because you can get a lot of support out of there, and we're never really alone.
No.
All the feelings that we're feeling, someone else has probably gone through it as well, right? And so to make light of that, of a heavy situation, and maybe that's where our blind spots come in, and we get like the partner assisted work, you know, working together to really create more peace and joy.
Well,
Not to be superficial with those words, because I think like happiness can be a very superficial thing. We just think, oh, happiness versus sadness, and actually there's so much more.
Yeah, that was
it's
like one of the recognitions was that I always just happiness was the opposite of being sad. Well, no, it's more than that, right? Like,
right.
And
yeah, in the 5 element theory, happiness or joy, I would say, is related to the fire element, which it would be then the summer. So we've got the opposites right now working.
Mm-hmm.
We've got like the winter calling us deep and within, and then, you know, the holidays are supposed to be about celebration and this heart.
Yeah, so it's sort of all these conflicting.
Yeah. So, and this is a balance that a dynamic I see a lot in practice, and just in general, like the balance between fire and water. You know, too much frozen water, like it drains that fire, right? So we need a good balance. So we need that spark of life, or that passion, to fire us up, keep us warm and healthy. And I think this is what's like taking care of our bodies, when we can recognize, I don't know, you don't even know that expression, like someone is cold as ice, like just kind of heartless. Like it's funny that we have these expressions around that really relate to these dynamics as well.
Well, and I think, you know, the other thing that comes up for me is just being an allowance and having that curiosity and that bit of adventure going into something we don't know.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it, right?
Because we typically, when I don't know what I don't know and I'm going in, the first response can often be to fear, right?
Yeah.
But if I can keep my attention on, oh, I'm doing something I haven't done before, or I know I can show up, I just don't know what I'm going to find. It's like, to me, it's like, you know, digging in the sand looking for something, right? I think going into a time with that curiosity and that sense of adventure can help. And then that ability to just listen and rest. Like, do we ever give our you know, ourselves that permission to rest?
Yeah, that's a hard one, especially in our Western society, where action and results and productivity is really highly valued, and then rest is lazy, not productive.
That's right.
You know, maybe like avoiding, but actually it's a very key component to how we keep moving. And again, the winter time is a really call for rest and rejuvenation and getting proper amounts of sleep. And I would put resting the heart in with that too. So if the heart is restless, you're not really going to get a good anchored deep sleep, because the energy is too flighty. It needs to come back into the body, find a home in the body, and warm from the inside out. And then it will naturally exude out. One more thing I was thinking of with the heart and the joy and the happiness connection. And maybe I'm just taking this from my perspective because I'm so rooted in the Eastern medicine and philosophies, and I love how they categorize things. But I mean, it's just one perspective, right? Of course. But connected to our passion and our purpose. And I think that comes back to our intention. Mm-hmm. So, without an intention, we're in an even more unknown space, which then can bring more fear, more anxiety. And that, like I said, sinks our chi. It's just like,
that's right. And it's kind of scattered. It's like,
yeah.
And that's, it can, and I kind of think of intention like almost like a target. If I just had a target to aim at, I might not always see, you know what I mean? I'm going to do my best to point my arrow at the center of that target. And so that's when I think of intention, I kind of think of that like a target. I mean, people use goals and that kind of thing, but I like to think, what's my target? What's the target that I'm going for? Because that can be so at least I know, I mean, just that image, right? Okay, my intention just becomes sort of that target. And then I might be all over here, but I remember to come back to that. Okay, what's my target is to feel the best I can feel, to take care of myself the best I can take care of myself, to pay attention to my thoughts, feelings, and emotions, but, not buy into them, right? To whatever it might be. But I mean, ultimately, we all want to feel our best. To me, that's the strive for happiness, right? Isn't it? Like we want to all feel good. Like when we don't feel good, something's off, right? And it's like, how do I bring myself back to that target when I don't feel good?
Right. You have to remember the target. So now is a great opportunity to reflect, go deeper, be more curious, and have fun in that curious unknownness that we're coming into a season that's very supportive of that. And then we're coming into the next year where we can further build on that. So how might someone contact you to get in, maybe have a conversation with you to explore more about what their intention might be, or more of how they can find happiness and take care of their bodies more?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm at Britannia Bodyworks in Calgary, Alberta. I'm definitely, an email or a phone call away, and lots of options for exploring what might be an intention for you all this season and how you see yourselves going forward. I perceive a lot of people really focusing on making big changes in their lives right now. And I think it's, even though we're going into a dark time, there's sort of this sense of, oh, I'm going to do this, that, or, I see that momentum of setting little goals, even though we haven't gone into the new year. And I think it's a great way to take the time to discover what that really is, and focus in on ourselves and what's driving the ship here, and what's important. So BritanniaBodyworks.com.
BritanniaBodyworks.com. And we're speaking with Lynn Hilderman. You can find her there. Contact her through the website, and more courses to come from you, I imagine.
Yes, I've got things percolating in my
some targets.
That's right. Yeah. I would love to do more of what I just did, but I've got other things, just wanting. You got to share what you got, right? It's like lots to share. So
yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your time and your wisdom and your space with us today. It's a real pleasure to have you with us. Our time is running out, so I'll have to say goodbye for now.
Awesome.
Until next time. And so, yeah, focusing on that intention and what you're wanting, what you're doing it for. What does happiness mean to you? How do you stay calm and confident in crazy times? And for our listeners and everyone, thanks for tuning in. What will you take with you from this conversation that will support you for the rest of your life?
Wow, what a show today, and the journey does not stop here. Come travel the world with Nicole every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time as together we become more fluent in the language of healing on W4CY Radio and Talk 4 TV. See you next week.